Thank you so much, Zara, for joining us. This is our monthly Budtender Spotlight. My name is Matt. I work for Polite Cannabis. Every month we like to highlight budtenders that kind of go above and beyond and really want to focus on educating themselves so that they can better help the customers and the end users. Zara, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
So just to kind of dive into it, you're kind of new to the cannabis industry. What led you to want to join and start working with cannabis?
Yeah, well, I have been using cannabis like half recreationally, half medically for years. I have PTSD, and so initially I started using cannabis because after trying therapy and trying pharmaceuticals, nothing really worked to help with symptom management, in particular, like my insomnia, just even the ability to like relax enough to get through the workday. And so I worked in food service for a really long time, which is an industry that a lot of people are in. That's like that overlaps a lot with the cannabis industry.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard on your body. It's really hard if you have social anxiety, and you know, it's an industry that kind of burns people out.
Totally.
And so especially after COVID, we all know kind of like what happened with restaurants and bars. So I was going through a lot of personal changes, started like gardening on my own time, and really like learning more about plants and about the process of really like connecting with that like growth cycle of nature. And so that led me to really like really understand that as human beings, like we are intimately connected with plants, and that like cannabis in particular is a really healing plant. So when I saw an opportunity to get into that industry, and to really kind of formalize things that I'd been working out with myself for years, I jumped on it because to me, like this is something that can help so many people. And as a bonus, it's something where there's like a viable career path for me. So I'm on board.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. You know, I personally have herniated discs in my back and found that cannabis was a lot more effective for my pain relief than a lot of the traditional methods. And then, you know, over the last 10 years now, I've really wanted to figure out why is it so effective? And one of the things that I think is really cool is that you actually reached out to us and you just wanted to have kind of a conversation to kind of further your knowledge and education. What would you say, you know, again, in being kind of new to the industry, what would you say that has been like one of the more interesting things that you've learned in your kind of cannabis knowledge journey?
Mm-hmm. Learning about CBD and having access to CBD products, particularly y'all's products, really like gave me the chance to fine tune my own kind of healing, my own like medicine in a way that for me has been like it's totally changed the game. I lived so much of my life and have had so many other people in my life kind of suffering the effects of what I now understand are like a clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. So for me, not only getting to experience for myself, like actually feeling right in my body and mind, but to know that I've seen a lot of people really struggle in the medical system and with prescription painkillers in particular. So for me to understand that it's really difficult when you're researching everything on your own because you have no way of knowing how accurate what you're hypothesizing is. You don't have anyone to discuss it with, and it's been such a taboo subject for so long. You can't really bring it up in hospitals or with doctors. They have a whole other set of fears around it. So for me to have you guys not only be making these products, but to be so open to talking, and for me to really learn that like, okay, this is not a one-off thing that is really helping me, but it's something that has so much potential and so much science behind it, but is still really in its infancy. Um, it just kind of brought it all together for me. And so that's what I've, even just the other day, I had a couple of people come into the dispensary like, hey, can you tell me some stuff about CBD? Absolutely. Because what I find is as I'm talking to them, they're like, how do you know all this? I'm like, because that's me.
Yeah.
I understand, but I get it because they're so used to being dismissed or told that their symptoms are exaggerated.
Right.
And that there's no solution. They're used to smoking these like really high THC weeds, which are a lot of what the recreational market favors. And they're like, well, why do I keep getting panic attacks? And it's like, it's not just you. That's a very real thing. And like, just seeing people get that same validation, and understand that like there is a way to move forward after they've been feeling like there's no solution for such a long time is really, really like powerful for me.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really interesting point. Working in a recreational dispensary, a
Right.
lot of the products on the shelves are high THC. A lot of the customers coming in are high THC. Are you do you are you starting to see maybe with products like Polite and other high CBD products that maybe people might actually benefit more from things like Polite than often what they're recommended with something with high THC?
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about bud tending, as a particular form of customer service that's really interesting because I've worked lots of different customer service jobs, is that because there's so many different options on the market, people are most responsive to hearing things from the bud tender's personal experience.
Right.
Without that personal experience, it's very difficult, especially because there's so many different kinds of CBD on the market right now, and there's so many things that people will be like, "Oh, this is a miracle cure." It's not. But one thing that I've found is being able to share not only like my diagnosis, but what I've experienced with the products can really help open people up to it because they do have their guard up because lots of them have been in so much pain for so long that getting that high feeling, that's just like what they associate with like feeling better. So they're like, okay, there's no high. Well, what does it do? And so
Right.
you kind of have to lead them across that bridge. And I think we're kind of just at the beginning of people being able to be there. But that's partially one of the best things about you guys, that I tell customers that they really respond to is that your products are formulated based off of medical research and it's a board of doctors. And that I think I see people's like barriers go down a little bit when they
Yeah.
hear that, especially when I point out like the potency of your products at the price point compared to other products we have, which I always do because that's one of the things I appreciate the most about the white products is it's different formulations and there's enough potency that like someone like me, like 10 milligrams is not gonna cut it.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I think people are becoming more open to it, but I think that that's why bud tenders educating themselves and being open to taking those products themselves is so important because without that personal experience, um, in this particular industry with the sheer amount of products that are on the market, that's really what customers respond the most to. But they're getting there. A lot of people come in with problems like pain and sleep and anxiety. And so I always try to get as much education in as possible without trying to make them feel like pressured. Because the reality is that like there is no $10 eighth equivalent of CBD that's like going to work effectively. So it definitely takes, but that's why I think having that research available is so important. And I tell people to go to your guys' website constantly. Like even if you don't buy it, just go read about it. Go learn, just become more familiar with it. You can make this decision later, but yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think when someone comes in and they're seeking relief and they're used to getting a high THC product and they kind of are asking what to expect, and you tell them you shouldn't feel this, but also hopefully you don't feel your pain, you don't feel your anxiety.
Right.
I think it's a new conversations. And again, we really appreciate what you do, and we really appreciate you kind of going above and beyond to educate yourself, um, so that when those conversations do come in, you know, I was a medical budtender for a long time, and it is often the people have tried traditional methods. The
Right.
dispensary is often the last place to come in and are trying something, but they often get a lot of relief. And I think it's really cool that you're educating yourself on the endocannabinoid system and endocannabinoid deficiencies and endocannabinoid tone, and kind of trying to understand why someone having this imbalance is really going to benefit from cannabis.
Right. And it's something that's super deeply important to me also because of the work I've been doing for the last 10 years. The end point of all restaurant work is to become a bartender. Well,
Right.
once you become a bartender, what you see is a lot of people with a lot of problems who are just getting drunk to deal with them. And it is your job to serve them. It is your job to talk with them. And it is like, it makes it just really, I've been made aware so much like how our society is kind of constantly looking for like quick fixes, but that really like there's so much that goes into like feeling like a whole person and feeling like wellness and health. And so many people aren't feeling that, and they think that they're the only ones. And
Right.
they think that like everyone else is just in, having a grand old time and that their bodies feel great. But that's kind of what I realized is like because of the way that a lot of aspects of our society are set up, we are always kind of looking for a quick fix to a really big problem. And I really think that the cannabis industry has so much room to grow in terms of being able to kind of address both recreational and medical needs, because it's such a like interesting facet of it as like a plant in particular, right? Is like for some people it people are always trying to say something's either like good or bad, but it's all in
Right.
how you use it and it's all in what you combine it with. And so that's what I really try to emphasize to people is like, I've used weed all the ways. Like I've been way too high when I don't want to be that high. I've been, not high enough when I really needed to be high. But that's the beautiful part about learning about your body and how it's responding to something like this is that it gives you agency again as a person using that plant however you want to use it. There's no wrong way to use it. It's just in terms of what you combine it with and like how it's fitting into like the broader routine of your life. But that's something I really want people to understand is that like it's not just like, oh, if you take CBD or like special CBD products, all your problems are solved. It needs to be combined with all of the things that are kind of throwing your endocannabinoid system out of whack or like changing your tone. And that's going to include nutrition, exercise, and like mental wellness, giving yourself the time and space you need to rest and really like come into a relationship with your body again. And that's what it's been the most helpful for me when you live with really like deep anxiety for such a long time and you never feel safe in your environment. To feel your body physically relax again is like groundbreaking. It's a completely new experience. And so I want people to have that. But it's such a little piece of like a broader thing that's happening in the world. But that's why I really appreciate you guys and how much care you're putting into it, as opposed to just, running off a CBD isolate. Like, hey,
Yeah.
heard about CBD?
Exactly. Awesome. Well, Zara, thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversations that we've had over the last couple of weeks, and I'm really looking forward to continuing them and continuing to work with you in the future. Thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with me. And thank you again so much for what you do. Again, we don't sell our products directly to the customers, so without you, without the bud tenders, without people taking the time and having the passion to educate themselves, they just sit on the shelf. So again, we really appreciate you and what you do, and thank you so much for taking time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Matthew. Just and your company at large. I really appreciate you guys just for the difference that you've made in my life, and I know that you're making a big difference in others' lives as well. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.